Pierre.
Hi, Carla.
I appreciate your willingness to have a little tape made, because I know the kids are really going to want to hear some of these stories firsthand, and the translation for me is not enough. So I appreciate it very much. And I guess I really wanted to hear your story about when you first realized that you had a healing power.
Aha. Okay. There were lots of little incidents when I was a kid. Wow. I was very fortunate growing up in Alameda, California. We moved out there from Chicago in 1925 when I was 2.5 years old. And it was a delightful, perfect place to grow up and live. And one of the places that we lived was, on high tide, you could jump out my parents' bedroom window into the bay at high tide.
It's fantastic.
And we used to go out in the yard where low tide. We'd go out down underneath the house, and there were crabs and shrimp and all kinds of things jumping around. And I don't know, I always had an affinity for anything that moved, anything, you know. When you're a kid, you're curious about everything. And but then, I don't remember what exactly. One day I was out in the swamp, not the swamp, what were they, it's where the estuary. See, Alameda is a man-made island.
Yes.
Cut out in San Francisco Bay. And it wasn't the swamps. But anyway, it doesn't make any difference. It was from where the water and the land were questionable. You know?
Right, like they in between.
Right. And there'd be little rabbits, and there were little, I don't know, all kinds of little critters, and even a bird one time came hopping up. I was just sitting there or walking or whatever I was doing, and I noticed the thing. It allowed me to pick it up and talk to it, and just, that's all. I was just talking to it, you know, and wanting it to feel good, and did that with several little animals, and they just, in a little while, they just fly off or take off and go do their thing, you know.
Yeah, so you felt very connected, you know.
Your mother,
was your mother like that too?
You know, my mother was if you were just in her presence, you felt good.
Right.
You know? She just, you always felt good when she was around. So, yeah.
Do you feel you inherited her gift?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. You know, she taught me a lot, you know. I don't know about teaching her or whatever, but she never forced anything. There was never anything like, you know, do this or do that or anything. It was like she would hand me a little article out of a magazine, a little bitty clipping. It's just a few paragraphs, and she'd ask me if I'd read it and tell her what I thought about it, how I felt about it. And so I used to do that, and I learned a lot like that. I mean, and she was always, you know, into the other levels of consciousness, you know,
Do you feel
people.
you learned how to uh, encounter or manage the different levels of consciousness as a young person?
Yeah, it seemed to happen kind of naturally. But, my mother made it real easy. And she used to tell me sometimes she'd come in the middle of the night or at night after I'd gone to bed and talk to me, and I would talk to her, you know, without realizing it. Uh, yeah, she'd ask me, you know, how I felt about something, you know,
Yes.
and sometimes I'd pick the thing up and I'd read the first paragraph two, three, four times. You know, it's just a bunch of words, and I say, "Wait a minute, you know, she wouldn't give this to me unless there was something I needed to know." You know, because she so many times before, the things she gave me were things I needed to know. I felt like it did, and so then I would get down and read it and see what it was all about, and see the essence of it, and look at it from all the different angles. Uh,
It's important to learn how to become a critical thinker and
yeah,
think about things from lots of different angles. And I guess part of that is the various life choices that you made later on, because you've had lots of different lifestyles. So, like, for example, when you lived in a commune for a while in California, and you told me a story about a man who was very close to plants and
oh
that was
yeah,
very connected.
yeah,
Yeah. I see. I think, she opens you up for those type of experiences to come
uh,
when something greatly unusual is not so unusual when you've been trained the way you are.
yeah. Well, back in the '60s, there were lots and lots of changes taking place in every aspect of life. Uh, and there were a lot of different communes and communities get together and things like that. And I was fortunate enough to get into some of them with Ken Kai's at the Living Love Center and with the Eureka people and then the Oz family. This one guy, like you were saying, with plants. It was like you ran into people from all walks of life, all different areas, you know, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant minds, you know, that wouldn't fit into
Yes.
regular society out there, but there wasn't anything they didn't know, there wasn't anything they couldn't do. They were very quiet, they stayed in the background and did their thing and included the people that were supposed to be together, got together.
What part of California was this?
The Oz family was in Pacific Grove,
Oh, okay.
California. That's right in between Monterey and what's the little,
North or south of Monterey?
huh?
North or south of Monterey?
Just south of Monterey.
Oh,
It's in
okay.
between Monterey and this little Carmel.
Carmel. Yeah.
Carmel, yeah. It's Pacific Grove, and it's right on the ocean, right there in Monterey Bay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. And we used to get up before sunset and go out and ohm in the sun. You know, hold hands
Yes.
and ohm in the sun in the morning, and start the day out.
Sounds brilliant when you start the day out connecting with nature
Yeah.
as a priority in your life. I'm fascinated by the story you told me with that gardener and how he was able to make everything grow so much bigger than you would expect.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, what I've found in this and in all things, the amount of love that somebody puts into a thing, and this guy just absolutely loved and adored. It just seemed like he worshipped the ground and the plants and the flowers and vegetables and all of the things that he did. Whatever he touched was just went to 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times its normal size, and delicious. Never tasted anything more delicious in your life than those things. You can't get fruit and vegetables like that anymore. They just aren't anymore. The air isn't the same. The water isn't the same. Nothing is the same. But there are enough, I don't know if there are enough, but there are a few people still out there in different parts of the country that are that way, that have that affinity with the earth to make things
Yes.
grow and respond.
Well, you seem to have drawn people from New York that are in that lifestyle. Alessandra, for example, who's into organic farming, and Susan Weed, who's a naturalist with the herbs, and your friend in North Carolina. It seems that a lot of your proteges have gone in the direction of connecting with the earth and using the earth for healing purposes.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. I mean, it's this is our home. This is our, and I've been just as guilty as anybody else in contributing to, pollution. When I was a kid, I didn't realize, what I was doing, and how important it was to really care for the earth, the land, and our air and our water and everything else that we have absolutely polluted and destroyed.
That's true. That must have made, with that type of worldview that you hold, that must have made the transition into the military all that much more difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult, but then you're here, and as far as I'm concerned, I do what I can do without trying to draw any attention to myself. But there's the only thing really and truly that's worthwhile is love. That's all there is. If you don't have the love, there is nothing else. You have that love connection. It doesn't mean you have to like something, but what's wrong with loving it? It's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends upon how many different ways people look at things. You sit a vase of flowers in the middle of a room,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the people sit around in a circle, and you have each person describe what they see, and it'll be 100 different perceptions. As they see, and this is the truth.
And the truth is that everybody's perception is different, and therefore it brings up the whole question of what is reality. I think that's one of the greatest lessons that you taught me, because I came in a complicated person looking for complicated answers.
Yeah.
And you have, like a wheat with the chaff, helped burn away all the superfluous nonsense and narrow down the issues of my life to some very basic precepts, which are much more fruitful than reaching out into so many different areas, which only gives you the fringes of what you're looking for. So, yeah, I'm very grateful for the fact that your wisdom came into my life the way it did.
Makes me feel good to know that you received it, that you got it. That's my pleasure.
Yeah, it seems to me that every person that I've met connected to you is someone who has benefited greatly from the wisdom connection that you give. It's been remarkable, the group of people that I've met recently.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we had a nice group Saturday and Sunday. One group Saturday, another group Sunday up there. Just beautiful, loving people.
yeah,
One guy is an organic farmer. organic stuff all over there. And all very, very interesting people.
Yeah. I'd like to ask you about your ability to travel with your mind into other situations and to see a little beyond the five senses. When did you first realize that you had the ability to see beyond what other people were seeing?
Well, I don't truly remember the first time, but I do know that the majority of times was when I took like something like LSD or mushrooms, and allowed myself to just be. So those times are really and truly more clear, I think, than those that weren't induced by LSD or mushrooms. But it was real easy just being. If you just be, stop everything. Just lay down, stop everything. With your mind's eye, watch your breath. Watch where your breath goes. And watch how it feels. See how it feels as you watch it and take your breath in or let it out. And whether you want to increase your breath or you want to decrease it or you want to stop it or you want to whatever, try all the different levels and see how you feel with each level of your breath energy. Okay, now I got off there some way or other. The original question was
The original question was when you first realized that you could see beyond.
Oh, yeah.
But let me
I
just
don't know.
throw this in. I stick in my head a phrase that you gave me, which is, the breath is the most important thing because it's the first thing you do when you arrive and the last thing you do when you leave.
Exactly.
And the quality of your life in between is determined by the quality of your breath.
Exactly.
And I always carry that with me when I'm smoking a cigarette in particular. I know, I need to put those away. But anyway, getting back to what you were going to say about when you realized that you could see beyond the four corners.
Yeah. Like I say, after I started taking LSD and mushrooms, it was the simplest, easiest way to do it, and I spent a lot of time there because I did enjoy it. Okay, to get there, when did I first do it? Okay, the way to do it, I think, is more important than when I did it.
Yeah. Okay. You tell me what you think is important for me to.
It's just being, like I said before, and just being is you lay down. There's nothing. You clear everything out of your mind. Let everything go. And you just be, and you just watch. And you'll be amazed at just watching and doing nothing but watching the things that you will see. And you can step in to those areas and you can step out of those areas. But it's tricky sometimes, so you have to,
Is this a form of conscious astral travel?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Well, first of all, you make sure you're here, and you make the agreement with yourself that you will come back.
That's the thread. You have to have that thread.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Connecting you back.
Yeah, you make that agreement with yourself. That you will come back. And you're just going out here to look around and see what's going on. That's all. And you do each layer, as it comes to you.
I was amazed by your ability when I first moved to England, and we had made that agreement before I left that you would visit me in a transcendental way. I was amazed because I followed your instructions and I laid down on the bed and I tried to clear my mind. But there was the focus of you. And I saw you clear as day with your long Mickey Mouse t-shirt on. And then I called you and I asked you what you were wearing. You know, because I wanted to know if it was real.
Right.
And you were. You were wearing that shirt. And for me, you know, I know that Padre Pio, who became a saint in the Catholic Church, had that ability. And different religious or spiritual figures seem to have that ability. And, but to have experienced it personally myself is one of the greatest treats of my life. And I want to thank you for that. Have you ever used that gift for... Well, I know that you used it when you were at war to help your fellow soldiers. Have you used it with family and friends as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's got a lot of interaction. My granddaughter, who is my mother, I feel her like my mother used to feel me.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so I'd call her, you know, and she said, "Grandpa, how come?" She says, "You always know when to call me when I need to talk to you."
Well, I have to say I feel very similar to Becky in that respect.
Yeah.
There have been times in my life where the phone rang and it was you, and it made the world of difference. You know, and I couldn't have gotten a better teacher for learning how to distinguish between reality and appearances based on, you know, what I went through. So
Right.
it's been a very well, it's just been filled with enlightenment, just over time, slowly building upon lesson, and your connection with Becky is one of the things I find most interesting. I hope I get to meet her one day.
Yeah.
But you recognized from the moment she was born that she was your mother reincarnated?
Yeah. As soon as I saw her, I mean, it was like you know, you just know.
And does she have similar healing gifts?
Do what?
Does she have
Yes.
the power of healing as well?
Yeah.
So it runs in the family for generations after generations?
I guess.
Tell me about your relationship with Arlene. I understand you that goes back.
What? Oh, we go back to the beginning of time.
You and Arlene.
Oh, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, yeah. Yeah, there's...
Do you have actual recollections of past lifetimes with Arlene? Or how would you describe
Well, I haven't
your
done
knowledge of that?
much stuff recently. When we first got together, I was kind of into that at that time, and then we hung out there, you know, getting acquainted there. But